Hello everyone, my name is Stephen. I am the director at Edinburgh Acting School, and we are joined by four of our ex-graduates from our Speech and Drama Diploma course, and also Jen McGregor, who is the director of the Diploma course. So welcome everyone, thank you for joining us for a relaxed impromptu chat about where you're at. You're all out there working actors now and where you came from, and it's just really important for us to touch base with you as friends and colleagues that me and Jen consider you as, and just sort of to have a little chat. So yeah, I think firstly, I think it's quite just important to obviously find out why you guys went and did a diploma, why you decided that the time in your life it was right to take that leap. You know, it's not something that you do half-heartedly. It's an intensive course that we offer at Edinburgh Acting School. And you do walk away, as you guys will talk about with the assessment. You work towards quite a big assessment. It's quite a bit, it can be quite a stressful time in your life to try and prepare for all that, and also rewarding. But you know, what made you decide at that point to jump on board the diploma course? Ashley, we'll ask you first. Hi, Ashley.
Yeah. Why did I choose to do the diploma? Well, I think I've always wanted to do sort of like acting, and for one reason or another, it wasn't really kind of possible before. So what I decided was I thought I'd see if I was kind of like any good at it, which is why I decided to take the courses, you know, the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 of Edinburgh Acting School. And I really, really enjoyed it. So I thought, well, I'd like to do a lot more of it, and I'd like to do a lot more of it in a more sort of serious way. So I decided that, yeah, doing the diploma would be a really kind of good way to kind of get into that. I decided to do it with Edinburgh Acting School because obviously, like, I think you guys are really great, but also that I knew that there'd be a lot of support there. So if I had any sort of like, you know, needing some sort of help or some more, I don't know, confidence or something like that, I knew you guys would be the guys for that. So that's why I chose to do a diploma with the Edinburgh Acting School.
Perfect. What about you, Catherine? Why did you join us, apart from possibly me forcing you into it, and Jen? But what was the main reason for you?
That was the main reason. No, I think I did it at that point because I really wanted to strengthen my understanding of the theory of acting as well as the technique, sort of the technique, but through the theory as well as performance. And I think up to that point, the stages were brilliant at doing very practical training. But what the added value of, I think, the diploma was that it went deeper into the theory of acting, and that really was interesting. And I think because it was monologue based as well, it was such a good grounding to develop both the theory and the practice and really hone your skills. And it was done over a fairly long period of time. So it wasn't rushed. It didn't feel rushed. It felt like you could go really quite in depth into some of the theory behind acting. And it was incredibly interesting. And it had something for everybody. I think if you were into physicality, it had lots on that. It had lots on voice and language, and you know, the whole range of things that you could get through a diploma course. And I mean, it really helped me work on my weaknesses as well, because it's such a broad course that, yeah, there's just, you know, you can work on your strengths and your weaknesses, and that's what I found doing the diploma. It also had the value of, for certainly in our cohort, of starting during lockdown, and I was struggling a bit during lockdown, and it was extraordinary that this was one of the very few things that continued. Like, the resilience was incredible, you know, it just continued, just immediately translated itself onto the screen. And so it sort of was a fantastic distraction from everything else that was going on. And just to echo Ashley, I mean, the support that the EAS tutors give is incredible, and you never felt as if you couldn't ask questions. And you know, if you needed any kind of support, whether it was you know, to do with the course or it was a bit emotional support, it was all there. So yeah, it was brilliant to do, and a great group of people to do it with, who we were all immensely supportive of each other as well all the way through. So that was an added bonus.
Good. Now, Rebecca, I always think your answers are going to be interesting because you've been at EAS. I think you're one of the longest students, like, probably ever, but also currently with being at the Actors Gym, you're the longest student. So yeah, obviously, like, the diploma hasn't been going for many years, so it's something that came to the forefront, I suppose, when you were still a student with us, but had been with us previously. And I think it was possibly something you had said that possibly stemmed us starting a diploma. I think you were sort of pushing us in that direction. So when it did come up, like, what was your mindset about moving into that? Because obviously I know that you've been with us a while and we're looking at, you know, taking that next step.
Yeah, I won't say how many years, but it's been an awful lot. But I think for me, what really drew me to the diploma was, I think I had got to a stage where I had been doing it for a hobby for so long that it was fine, but you're very limited in what you can do. I found that I was quite limited in what I could do and what I could learn in that respect, in that over the course of a term, you can touch on many things, but you really don't get that opportunity to dig deep into something unless it's we're going to spend a whole term doing just this or just that. What you get, though, is a really brilliant range of stuff that you can do for a couple of weeks and then move on to something else. And I suppose it just was at the time that I was starting to think, people were starting to say to me, also when something was coming up that I was in, they'd say, when are you getting paid for this? Is this your job? I'm like, no, this is just a hobby. And it gave me a route, I think, into being able to study things like Ashley and Catherine have both said at this point, in more depth, and spend more time on it and really get into the nuts and bolts of why this particular thing might work or why something else might be more suitable in certain circumstances. But what was really useful for me from it was that it widened my toolkit in a way that I didn't expect, and just gave me so many more things to go, well, actually, that isn't working. What about this? That's not working either. What about that? And I don't know that going to a course a couple of hours a week in the evening was giving me that same depth of knowledge, because there's a reading list, there's texts that everything is based on, that you spend a session, like one day doing, but also preparing for in the 2 weeks before that. It might be moving to every month at the moment, but it was every 2 weeks when I was going. So you really had one particular text and one practitioner to go over and over and over. And that really was a bit of an eye-opener for me. And having done the diploma now, what has been invaluable afterwards actually has been the introduction to the networks and how to find work. And so things like approaching people for funding, which I've done and been successful in, devising work, which I've done and been successful in ish. We've had a product at the end of it that we can show people and say, this is a result of this piece of funding or collaboration, which wouldn't have happened if I hadn't done the diploma, because it just opens those doors in a way that I don't think you appreciate until you're in that situation, and being exposed to those avenues, because that's, I think, what was missing from beforehand. Because I think that for some people within, if we were trying to go out and say, oh, we're doing this, come and see it, there was still an element of looking at it as, yes, but they are just doing it for fun. They're not full-time drama students, for instance. So it was difficult, I think, to break down those barriers. And the diploma, and having come out the other side of that, and having the confidence to call myself a working actor, which only happened very, very recently in the grand scheme of things, has really, really come about as a result of the diploma, in a way that it just wouldn't have done otherwise.
Perfect. Annie, I'm not even sure there's anything else to cover within that, so I'm not even going to ask you that question. I feel like we covered it really, really well, and I think that's fair. I think it's a lot of what you said is why we do the course. But I suppose, Annie, from my point of view, if we're moving on to the next question, is I know that you came with a sort of film editing or a filming sort of background. And moving into drama, obviously, it's completely different, but you did come with experience of the other side of the camera and having that interest there. But what was it that you learned that I suppose you weren't expecting to learn, or something, a skill that you wanted to master over your time doing your diploma?
Lots of stuff. I think, yeah, so I'm used to sort of directing people from behind the camera or getting people to do different things, and actually from the other side of it, learning how that feels and also what directors are looking for. It's quite useful to see the other side of that. For me, it's probably just like a toolkit for storytelling as a whole. Like, acting is one part of that storytelling. So if you're a filmmaker, you sort of like, how could I do this differently? Or how can I, can I do a bit of acting here and then a bit of filmmaking here? And how can you sort of embed those two things? So for me, that's kind of what I wanted, and that's definitely what I got out of it. So
amazing. Now, Jen, I'm going to just touch base with you, because obviously right now there might be people who are like, EAS, do a diploma? What is a diploma? And I know that's probably a lot of you guys have had that same experience where, half of our students that come to our diploma course are current students. They went through the stages like a lot of you, and then they've naturally just filtered into it. 25% of our students are students who were previous students who have taken a little break and they've came back. And then there's 25% of our students for diploma who are completely brand new. They go on in the research trying to find somewhere to study and to look for the experience that we offer. So I suppose at this point it's time to plug it, Jen. But what is it that we offer at Edinburgh Acting School, and what is a diploma? What is the speech and drama diploma that we offer? What does it entail?
The diploma is a really useful opportunity to acquire a little bit of formal training and to apply your skills and your craft as an actor. Rebecca's mention of the toolkit is an important one, to make sure that you have got a number of different techniques at your disposal as an actor that you can draw on when you're preparing for performance, to make sure you know a little bit about the industry and how to get a foot in the door, and how you can take control of your career, like what shape that is. The diploma is a good path for anyone for whom full-time actor training isn't necessarily suitable, because that's the sort of first thing that tends to pop into people's heads is, what are the courses like at somewhere like the RCS or at PAS or at Queen Margaret? And there are some great courses, but full-time study doesn't fit into everyone's lives. And what we find is that we quite often have students who come to us who have established careers elsewhere, who are not necessarily looking to do the traditional drama school route, but who do, as everyone here has already said, want to know what they're doing, ultimately, who want to go beyond just working on instinct and any kind of natural ability they've got, and be able to work through any stumbling blocks that they find, who want to be able to pick up a piece of text and go, I don't know where to start with this. Actually, yes, I do. Or I have no idea how to approach this character. Actually, yes, you do. But just go through the text and start applying some lab and effort, start doing a little bit of Wachowski to it. Have you done your given circumstances? And if you're listening to those words and thinking, what do those mean? And you want to find out, then diploma is a really, really good place to learn that. We cover some of this stuff on our regular stages classes once you get into stage 3, but as everyone has said, not with the kind of depth that you do on diploma. And obviously within the stages, you've got a mixture of people who are doing this just for fun, which is a fine reason to do anything performance related. But you've also got people who've got other ambitions for it, and who maybe want to go on and do things like make their own work, which is an increasingly important skill for an actor. being able to generate your own work at the times when few people are casting, it's what sets some people apart, because it would be lovely if there was enough work to go around, but there never has been, and increasingly the number of theatres that are scaling back on in-house productions, the number where their flagship shows are collaborations with other theatres, so there's actually one show serving as flagship for 2 theatre seasons or more. You can't rely on there being typical work available for you. And we set out to make sure that our diploma graduates have some level of self-sufficiency, so they know how to keep themselves going, even at times when things might be slow. So that's a little overview of what we aim to offer on the diploma. Obviously, as everyone here has said, offering support is really, really important to us, because this is an industry that can be absolutely brutal on your mental and physical well-being. So we need to prepare you for that as well. We need to make sure that when you leave here, you've got a network. That's what we've got the Actors Gym for, so that nobody's stepping out and then just going, right, I'm on my own with this. I am really lonely. I'm being rejected right, left and centre, and I don't know what to do with all of that. I think I'll give up. We want to make sure that if you're having those feelings, if you're, because we all hit those rungs of rejection, but that's just a normal part of any theatre maker's life, that you can bring it to your network and find understanding and solidarity and advice about where to go next, and people who will send you castings that they've spotted that you haven't. And it's as holistic an approach to entering the realm of professional acting as we can put together, I hope, certainly, and that seems to be what our students report back at the moment. So that's what
I think that's really fair, and actually I think that's probably the reason why we picked the 4 of you to have this conversation, is that each of you are all working independently on projects that I think all have come around from different circumstances, and that's really important. I think a lot of that comes from lessons that we try and teach with diploma is self-sufficiency and being able to go out there and create your own work. So I know that some of you have graduated and at different years, so you've been working on different things since then, but what is it since graduating that you've worked on that you have enjoyed, that you've had the opportunity to do? Because not necessarily you had a diploma, because we could go into the conversation of having that certificate doesn't mean that you automatically walk into jobs, but hopefully it gives you the toolkit, which is our keyword. Hopefully it gives you the toolkit that you feel confident enough to go out there and to get these auditions and do all that. But since graduating, what have you had the chance to do you never thought, Catherine? And I ask you because I know that you're working on a project right now that I just tip my hat off to you for doing it. But what is it that you've been given the opportunity to do that you're excited about, that you've enjoyed, that you never thought would happen since graduating?
The honest answer is lots of different things. That's been the best thing about it, is from appearing in plays live and online, to applying for funding and actually getting some money, which was just incredible given it was our first shot, thanks to Jen's help, and but that's why, because of the support and the guidance from the people at EAS, that was able to happen. So Rebecca and I, we did a collaborative piece, which is our first go at trying to devise our own piece and performing it. And then just recently was asked to collaborate to do a one, we call it a one-person show now, I guess, which is again just something that I never ever thought I would be doing, and it is terrifying and exciting in equal measure. But it's the support and the network. The diploma and EAS more generally allows you to build, which has allowed all that. There is no way I would be doing that without either of those things. Not just because I think I wouldn't know about them, I wouldn't know how to go about it, but because I wouldn't have the confidence to do it, or the skills. So it's all of those things. And there are a huge number of other things that you could do because you get to know about them. through the networks, and you can choose what kind of performing you want to go into. There are so many opportunities. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing now.
Actually, I know that
writing it as well.
Writing it as well. So actually, I know that you obviously you've done some sort of short films and done a bit of set stuff on set, but I also know that you are working with a sort of new company or a new director, or you're working on a new piece at the moment, which is really interesting, and it's something, you know, that did you see yourself doing that, I suppose, is the main question? Because obviously I know that a lot of your live theatre stuff has been with EAS, and it's been sort of in that environment, which is different from going into something by yourself without the sort of security blanket. And I know the sort of, you know, the film and that sort of short movie stuff, we've discussed that before, but in regards to your first sort of theatre thing away from EAS, how's that feeling?
Just being able to have the confidence to actually go out and do that, because it's not acting in a play like I've done before. I mean, this is storytelling, so it's quite different to what I'm used to doing. And not only that, but the expectation was that I, with another cast member, would devise it as well, which is what we've been doing. And I would never have had the confidence to do that before Diploma. I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I find that all the sort of skills and things I learned from Diploma have actually, been so useful. And I think when you've got confidence in yourself, your director, your stage manager, your cast mates, your cast members, they all have confidence in you if you've got confidence in yourself to do it. Although, yes, I haven't, the show hasn't been on yet, I'm really confident that this show is going to be really good, and I'm really proud of all the work that I've been able to put into it and have a fair contribution. Because, like I said, I didn't do this from school. I've only been doing this a few years, but I felt like the amount I was able to contribute to the show is on par with the amount that everybody else was able to contribute to it, and that's a really nice feeling.
Because Annie, before you were making short movies before you came to EAS, but I also know that you made a short movie with one of our other students, and it's just got so much like critical acclaim over international festivals. There was always like another little stamp that was going on your poster, and I was like, whoa, it's so incredible. So yeah, did anything, like with Diploma, did anything change? Obviously meeting another person who you just gelled with and you managed to create that, but what was different from the stuff you were doing before to the stuff that you were doing, that you did with Wendy?
Yeah, so before I was obviously behind the camera and then I was like, oh, hell with it, I'm just going to start going in front of the camera and just doing a bit more. So Diploma definitely helped me just with thinking about what does it look like and how can I use my techniques in front of camera as well. So I managed to do some stuff for my work as well. So obviously I've got a full-time job. And before I was just making little short films and I was just getting really bored. It's not fun. So just adding a bit of comedy and using that over lockdown as well, I just thought it was really necessary. Like, we're all so bored and miserable, and so yeah, I think my focus has been a bit on the comedy side. And yeah, we put a couple of films into film festivals across the world and haven't won anything yet, but hopefully soon.
I mean, but putting yourself out there is really important, isn't it? And that's something that Jen had spoke about, and it's something that we do promote, is putting yourself out there. And in the first place is, we have to do that on a daily basis, and we have to push ourselves. And I think one of the perfect examples is what you and Rebecca and Wendy are doing, is that, coming out of this pandemic. So if you are watching this in 10 years' time, we have had a global pandemic over 2020 and 2021, because this will be going on YouTube. There is, it's the work out there is few and far between, and it's about going out there and creating your own work. And I know that you guys are getting together to do you're producing your first piece. So Rebecca, what's that like? Because I know that I've sort of seen you coming out of rehearsals, and it can be tiring, but it can also be really rewarding. But the fact is that you are creating your own work. Like, you are going out there and you have a date and you're selling tickets and you're working through all of that. Like, what is that like from where, before you started Diploma, before you did Diploma, before you even went on this little bit of a journey with everyone?
Yeah, it's been, I would say it's been a bit of an evolution, actually, I think, because I think pre-Diploma days, I was like, I'm an actor. If I was to describe myself as any sort of creative being, it would be an actor. All I was interested in was being on stage. And I have also now started referring to myself as a theatre maker or a creative, because like Jen said earlier on, it's actually, it is necessary to have those ideas of your own, or fingers in pies, or pokers in fires, whatever you want, whatever phrase you want to use, to get yourself out there. So putting on our own show from scratch actually gives me producing skills that are different from if I'm just being, I mean, I have jokingly said in the past, you remember those days where all you had to worry about was learning your lines and turning up and getting your blocking right and stuff like that. But again, it's one of those other things that just gives you an insight into what is involved in putting on a show, and all the other things that you have to think about, and just how important they are. And I suppose what that gives me as well is a sense of how to be a more sympathetic actor to the people that are around me, making also making those decisions and having all those other things to deal with. You kind of know how to be a better cast member as well. But you just, it's one of those things that you do just have to go and do it. And the thing is, the more you do it, the more you think about those ideas that you have and start jotting them down. And you can start thinking about things like, well, if I wanted to put that on, what would that look like? And what are the steps that I would have to go through? So it actually has made those sort of pipe dream ideas that I've had much more tangible, because I, at least if nothing else at the moment, have a base from, this is the first thing that I need to do.
And I would also say, before I go into sort of my final question, because this, believe it or not, this conversation has been structured in my head. Before I go into the final question, I would say, and it's really important to say, is that, you know, we don't, at Edinburgh Acting School, we don't, like, you don't finish your diploma and then that's it. And I think that's a testament to you guys, is that you guys have worked so hard to find your way, and you've made connections with each other, and you've made connections with people outside of that, and that's where it comes from. You know, Jen doesn't have a magic wand. I mean, I do call her my fairy godmother, but she is definitely, you know, she can give you the tools to go out there and do that. And I think that's really important when having this conversation is, and we don't promote come to our school and you will get this. You know, we know there's no promises within this industry, but I think what, hopefully, if anyone takes anything away from this conversation, is that it is possible if you find good people that you can work with, if you find a good support network. If, firstly, a lot of it is chance, we know this, but if there's not chances out there, then you go and create your own work. So I suppose my final question, which is, like, you know, it's on my list, I'm like, oh, we really need to ask this question, but we do, because at the end of the day, we want people to sort of to come to Edinburgh Acting School. So I suppose my sort of final question is, you know, anyone who's sort of watching this, why should they do a diploma? Why should they take that step? And why should they choose Edinburgh Acting School as that thing? So I suppose in 30 seconds, I'm going to ask each of you to sort of just speak to somebody who's not on this journey yet. You know, even you can even refer back to yourselves a couple of years ago and speak to your former self or whatever it may be. But, you know, if someone's thinking about doing this course with Edinburgh Acting School, why should they do it? And I'm not expecting like a hallmark like answer, but feel free to say what you need to say.
I'm going to use Jen's words and say, especially for me, the holistic approach that Edinburgh Acting School give was exactly what I needed. For someone who, you know, I'm very big at promoting about mental health and positive mental health, and I think Edinburgh Acting School definitely help you along with that journey. And so, yes, I know everybody will have lots of different things to say about it, but that was the main thing for me, was the holistic approach to the Edinburgh Acting School's diploma.
I think if you love acting and you want to know more about it, and you want to do it, you want to learn about it in a really friendly, supportive, fun environment, and at the same time acquire a huge number of skills. You know, and challenge yourself as well, not scared of putting yourself out there a little bit, because it is, you know, some of it's quite difficult. It's not all easy all the time, you know, it's quite challenging. But if you want to do that, but know that you're going to get the support to get you through it, and you're prepared to do a bit of work, what you come out at the other end is a huge amount of knowledge and confidence in acting. And if you love it, you'll just love it, because that's what it's focused on. It's performance based as well. So it's, you know, you don't need to write essays and things. I mean, that's what might be putting people off. You know, if you think you're going to, you know, it's going to be a heavy academic, you know, course, there is reading, there is learning, but it's all focused on performance. So if you love performing, then do it, because it will just make you a better performer.
It's practical, it's fun, you learn a lot, you've got a toolkit at the end of it that you can go away and use to your advantage. But also it's a good challenge and it's a test. So if you've done acting before, you've done plays or whatever, it's probably one of the biggest tests of your sort of abilities, and getting to that end point where you've got to do your final exam piece. Yeah, and just getting over your fears as well. It's really good for that.
I would say top notch is the support that you get, and the nurturing that you get throughout the course, and the responsiveness that there is as well within. I mean, okay, there's a set syllabus, but on a session to session basis, it's responsive enough to change, to recognise what's going on in the room at the time and adapt to that. So that's really good. And honestly, I would say there's a reason that I've kept coming back all this time. I have tried numerous other avenues for being creative, but Edinburgh Acting School is always the one that brings me back.
Amazing. Jen, is there anything you want to add? Because obviously this has been your baby now for a few years. So is there anything you kind of want to add in there before we wrap this up?
Sure. I think one of the big benefits of diploma is that it pushes you into a reflective engagement with your own practice, which, if that's a phrase that doesn't mean anything to you when you're hearing it, basically it makes you think about what you're doing, because you have to be able to explain it back to me and to the examiner when the exam time comes, and to classmates. So again, rather than just relying on instinct, you're constantly being pushed back into thinking about what you're doing and being able to talk about it, most importantly, to yourself, so that you can articulate what you're doing, so that you can make informed choices about what you're doing. And this is one of the reasons why I teach, and why I love teaching. I'm a working theatre maker, I'm a playwright, director, spoken word artist, and many other things. But I keep teaching as part of my practice because I think it's important constantly to be pushed back into the basics of your art, and to keep refreshing that, and not to let your own practice go stale. The diploma students keep me on my toes because everyone brings me something a little bit different. And it's my job to embrace that and help them to shape it, and help them to find out where the work fits into their lives. Because I think this is a really, really important thing to mention, is that all four of the actors that we're speaking to today have demanding jobs apart from acting, and all of you have found ways to fit your acting, to fit your art into those lives. And so I feel like if anyone who's watching this is thinking, oh, but I've got a full-time job, oh, but I've got kids, oh, but I've got all these responsibilities, I don't have time, I can't be going off to do a tour for a year or whatever, there's so much more to it than just that. There are so many avenues, and you can create your own. And that's what I feel I'm here to help people do. So if that's essentially, if you've ever thought, you know, oh, but I didn't go to drama school at 18 and I'll never be a proper actor because of it, there are so many ways to be a proper actor. And diploma is the first step towards that for these four, for the others that have trained here, and hopefully for many of those will train in future.
Yeah, I would say the same. Anybody who is sort of watching this or listening to this and feels like they've got like an ounce of passion that the four of you guys have sort of explained through your words and through, you know, what you're doing and, you know, the way that you are, then I would say, like, come along and join us. Me and Jen will happily take on more, but if we can get four wonderful people that are just incredible as you guys, then we'll be more than happy and going forward with our diploma journey. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. We will make sure that any shows and stuff we do put on our social media pages. So any shows in the future that these guys are in, we will definitely make sure that we mark it, and I'm sure you will see them again, whether it be producing their own work in one-person shows, whether they're in short movies, or whether they end up in the West End stage. Who knows? But thank you so much for joining us.